Welcome back to Zemer of the Week, Zhao. I'm John Hornstein here with my co-host David Rosenwine, and we very much apologize that we missed you last week, but we were a little bit busy celebrating the Jewish holiday of Purim, and as some say, David, a Freilichen Purim. We had a very Freilichen Purim. I don't know if that's the proper way to say that with the very in there.
It
But
sounded good to me, John. But I'll just ask you a question. I know we're not a podcast to discuss Jewish law or halacha, but I didn't realize that Purim was a week long there.
yes, and you do realize that by jabbing fun at me, you are also jabbing fun at yourself squarely.
As per
Good,
usual, the
but
joke was not perfectly thought through.
but yes, David, that is correct. Purim is a 1 day exercise, and we are using it as an excuse for a week of missed work, and we apologize for that. But having said that, it was a lovely holiday for me. I hope it was for you as well. I dressed up in a duo costume as a pizza delivery boy and the pizza.
Oh,
Um, so that was lovely. How about you, David? What was your costume?
well, for some extra content to the listenership, John is a pizza aficionado. He's been known to have a book about pizza, sometimes, the pizza pouch, so that's actually a very befitting costume. Nice.
Yes. And the pizza did look like it had pepperoni on it, but just to clarify for the listenership, those were tomatoes that had been seeded very meticulously before being placed onto the
It's
pizza.
a judge-free listenership. Don't worry about it, John.
So,
I actually did not dress up. I celebrated the holiday in actually multiple cities. I spent the night and the first morning in Chicago, Illinois,
mm,
spent the afternoon and evening in New York City.
wow, that is multiple time zones and multiple cities. Well, which city would you say had the most Purim spirit, David?
You
Chicago,
know,
or New York?
and John, with this answer, we'll try to segue into what we're trying to do here this week. But
Sure.
I actually thought New York was rocking. Had the opportunity to go to a
The opportunity.
the opportunity to go to a l'chaim for my roommate Elon Sherman and his now fiance Irina Resnick
Wow.
to celebrate their engagement, and that
Mazel tov,
that was
Elon.
also the Purim Suda. So there was a lot of ruach, a lot of energy going on there, and
That's
that's
lovely.
actually that's a good segue into what we're going to be doing this week.
Wow. Good, good. Well, you're very good at segues, very good at keeping us on time. So tell us what we're doing this week, David. What are we singing?
Well, so this is interesting. So you usually set the table for our listenership, so I thought you were going to introduce, but I can wing it.
This
Um,
is a curveball, David. We're getting ready for baseball season. You got
we
to be
are.
ready for curveballs. You just had your fantasy baseball draft, so.
Wow, we are really all over the map today.
Yes.
Yes, all of this is true. Sunday night, Royals Mets fantasy baseball auction last week was a success. Moshe
Good.
Rosenwine was very pleased with the draft. Benji did a good job.
Your
So
younger
anyway,
brother, Benji.
anyway, just to remind the listenership where we are, we've just finished the meal. We finished our
Yep.
zero. We're ready to thank God for the food that we ate, say benching, the grace, Birkat Hamazon. And the way benching opens up is with a psalm called Shir Hamaaot, which is a psalm that we, sing, and we can actually sing to a variety of different tunes. And in honor of the wedding season being kicked off, in fact, the listenership as a whole, we've had 4 engagements over the last few weeks, and what we wanted to do was to kind of give a shout out to those that got engaged, both that we are going to mention, that we know of, and that we don't know that are listening. We're going to sing the Shir Hamaaot tune to a very classic, famous, popular wedding song, which we will
Mm.
talk more about during a future season when we cover Jewish wedding songs.
Very nice, very nice. And so, if anybody has a particular interest in the wedding season, please reach out to us and we can discuss further. We did have a question from last week about why we start with Shir Hamaaot when we go into benching. We're going to discuss that actually next week. We had a Freilichem forum, but we were actually able to do a little bit of research on the matter, but we just have some loose ends to tie up on that particular question. But we do want to get into sort of this wedding fever and the wedding song. So David.
John, you were always a Boy Scout in terms of always making sure the knots were tied before, setting something loose.
Yes, we need to tie the knots.
And the other curveball I actually wanted to throw at you was I want to double down on our question, right? So we did ask a good question, and we will tie those knots and get an answer.
Good.
But the psalm, the Perek of Tehillim, Shir Hamaaot, ends. There's the last sentence that we say or don't say is it varies amongst whose meal you go to, whether or not you sing the last verse of that song.
Yes.
So I'm actually going to double down on your question. So this episode is clearly a little light on the content, heavy on the banter. Next episode, let's go heavier on the content, a little bit lighter on the banter for everyone's sake. And ask why some people sing that last verse, and why some people don't.
Yeah. Tehilas Hashem Yidaber Pi. Oh no, that's not it. David is shaking his head. We will be super crisp on the third verse, whether folks sing it or don't sing it. But anyways, like David was mentioning, we're a little bit heavier on the banter this week. Let's get into teaching the song so that we can do at least one thing productive.
Do you want to teach it this week, John?
I'm happy to, or you can, given that you're the bar mitzvah teacher extraordinaire. It's up to you, Dave.
All right, I can kick it off since we kind of prepped that.
Good. And your hair looks wonderful, by the way. For the listeners,
we discussed no more hair discussions on the podcast since the listenership can't see it. All right.
Maybe someday they'll be able to. Anyways, please continue.
Shir Hamaaot. And just so you know, a quick note, I'm not going to say God's name, so I'm going to say Hashem, but when you sing it at your table, you can obviously feel free to say God's name. Shir Hamaaot b'shuv Hashem Shivat Zion Hayinu kecholmim Mahaz Yimalei Sechok Pinu V'hul Shoneinu Rina Az Yomru V'hagoyim Higdil Hashem Lasoti Melech Higdil Hashem Lasoti Manu Hayinu Sim. And then it continues through. So there's a low part, there's a high part. Again, you might recognize the tune from the last Jewish wedding you went to, or you might not. And in which case, stay tuned because there's going to be a future season with wedding songs, and that one is going to be the big one.
Good. And so there's a next verse in Shir Hamaaot, and you just repeat the same tune, right?
Right. So it's right. So the next verse. I can do it if you think that'll be helpful.
Up to you. I just wanted to clarify for the listenership. So you repeat the same tune that you just did for that first verse.
Yep. So it's on Shuva Hashem Eshiviteinu Ka'afikim Ba'negev Hazarim Bedima Beherina Yiktzoru Halach Yelechu Vacho Nehose Meshech Hazara Vaho Yavo Verina Nehose Alu Motav. And actually, that ends the portion that some would sing. And then there's another verse, like we mentioned in the beginning, that others might sing. And like you mentioned, John, it starts with Tilat.
Yep. So we will revisit that next week. And David, I'm noticing we don't have so much time left, but I just wanted to ask you, What would you say is your favorite memory of singing Shir Hamaaot?
It's a good question, actually. Um, can I give you two?
You can. You can absolutely give me two.
So the first one actually has to do with this tune. Um, and so there are a couple things. I think one, like you often sing this tune at the end of a wedding, and I think
Mm.
weddings always make me happy. They're always a happy time. And I think there's a nice, I guess, a positive correlation between this tune for me and happy times. The other thing is along the same lines as that. This happens to be my mom's favorite tune to Shir Hamalot. So it reminds me of singing Shir Hamalot with my family, having fun, joking around. Um, those would be two fond memories of Shir Hamalot, at least with this tune. What about you?
Well, that first of all, that's great, and I would always want to sing Deborah Rosenwine's favorite tune to share Malot. My favorite was with my grandfather. We used to do the Tehillah, and we did the more classic tune to share Malot, and I just loved sitting next to my grandfather benching because it was something that he just really loved and really got into. He had a specific way of benching, and I think that this is, benching is sort of like a perfect use case or sort of like case study for our idea of sort of traditions in Zmirot, because it's a song, and or I guess it's a group of songs that really everyone sings sort of a variation of the same tune, especially past Shir Hamalot when you get into benching itself. But there are like these little intricacies that are different. And I loved sitting next to my grandfather and singing it because he had like those things that were different and those things that were special. Shir Hamalot was no exception. So, gets back to the idea of family and tradition that we've talked about for so many weeks during this season, David.
First of all, nice to hear. Cool story. Second of all, you always crush bringing it back together. We can go off on all sorts of tangents about my hair and fantasy baseball, but we always bring it back to tradition and family. Well done, John. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Well, appreciate, on your side, you always do such a good job of sharing nachas with the entire community and being able to share in the joy of the wedding season and the wedding fever that is going on. Hope that, it's in the air, David, and it's exciting. And so I'm glad that we were able to celebrate it on Zal today.
Yes, same here. And on that note, you mentioned it's in the air. You mentioned community. So some of the Zal community that's gotten engaged recently, we already mentioned Ilan and Rena. We also want to wish a very special Mazel Tov to Mark Segal and Alana Gorlick, as well as Chaim Frankel and Tova Safir. And then finally, a very avid listener, Ron Shapiro and Maya Sarfati. Mazel Tov to those that we know about, those that we may not know about, those listeners. It's in the air, as John said.
That is a beautiful thing, and a little bit more of a mazel tov to Ron because he listens to the podcast versus those other characters who we're not sure. Just kidding, kind of. But yeah, that's
there's a thing like funny, not funny, or kidding, not kidding.
Exactly. My high school English teachers used to say there's some truth to every joke. And so on that note, you'll know that when I make a joke, I might be being serious. But, anyways, thank you, David. This was really lovely. And, we'll look forward to discussing more about Shir Hamalot next week.
Excellent. Have a great week, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Bye-bye.